I just want to start off by saying that in preparing for this event, I had to ask myself, okay, what is the one point that I really want to drive home in my remarks and for just this event in general? And I think that the most important thing that I would want, anyway, if you take anything at all, I would want you all to understand that the state's de-investment in public education is parallel to the underrepresentation of students of color at UCs and particularly in public education across the nation. And that affects Latino students, Black students, Native American students, and Southeast Asian and Pacific Islander students from low-income communities. Now I have to say that this crisis, at least from my perspective, is not new. This crisis has been a disaster in the making since Prop 13, which has systematically cut resources to public education. Prop 209, which got rid of affirmative action in combination with skyrocketing fees and budget cuts, has been a complete catastrophe for public higher education. And this is something that students of color have been organizing around for decades, but it has only now come to the public attention now that it's hit the middle class. But I'd also have to say that there are decisions made in the office of the president and on each campus that have had a devastating effect on services and majors and research centers that focus on providing services to people of color and students of color. And even before the crisis hit at this point, the UC was already struggling to create a positive and welcoming environment for students of color. And really, some spaces only need a little bit of cutting in order to make them dysfunctional. And an example of this is the Educational Opportunity Program. In order to qualify for the Educational Opportunity Program, you need to be low income, receive a Pell Grant, and be a first-generation student, and that is most often the profile of students of color in the UCs. I myself am an EOP student and benefit from the services that the EOP program has provided on this campus, but over the years it's been getting drastic cuts, not only on this campus, but on campuses across the UCs, and at UC Irvine has actually been cut completely. And so what that means is that even students who do make it into higher education aren't receiving the proper services in order to transition successfully to this university and also retain themselves at this university. And without those services, more and more students of color in public education are being pushed out before they graduate. And a lot of administrators on this campus and across the UCs are actually in favor of high fees and fee hikes because they believe that fee hikes are important because students who can afford, students from higher income backgrounds who can afford to pay the skyrocketing registration fees actually provide the financial aid that low income students receive. But that's not the proper perspective to take because it doesn't address two things. One is sticker shock. A lot of low income students of color do not have the navigational capital of higher education that a lot of non-first generation students have, meaning that even if they did want to come to college and did want to receive higher education, they don't know where to get the proper services. They don't know where to get financial aid or even what that system looks like or how to navigate it. And so they see skyrocketing fees, the price of going to college, and they think, I can't do it. So they don't even apply. And especially now that the budget crisis has hit the middle class, students who have lived most of their life in the low income range and their families are just now beginning to make enough to be considered middle class, still can't afford the price of a UC education and also don't receive services. So the high fee, high aid model is not a solution. And I think that solutions and the approach to the solutions that we should take is that we need to make race, ethnic, gender, and class-conscious decisions when we think about how to resolve this budget crisis.
Hey, everybody. This is a very brief hello because I'll get in big trouble if I give my speech that I'm supposed to give for today. But I did want to be here today at this fantastic event because I've been so inspired by the activism taking place on this campus. The country is watching you. The world is watching you. It's been incredible watching the walkout on September 24th. You guys really should give yourself a round of applause. That was fantastic. I love the study in the occupation of the anthropology library. I love that that won. I think there's a pattern emerging, which is that when people push back, it has an effect. Winning is possible. And most of all, I think what's most exciting is what's happening here today with this incredible panel of speakers that I'm honored to be a part of. Because this strategy of using a crisis to ram through pro-corporate policies, using the fear, the disorientation, but most of all, the line that Margaret Thatcher used, there is no alternative. That's what we've been told for 30 plus years. And what this here is about is the fact that there are lots of alternatives. We know the alternatives. This crisis does not need to be paid for by the most vulnerable people in society. It doesn't need to be paid for by HIV positive people. It doesn't need to be paid for by women who are being battered by their spouses and boyfriends. It doesn't need to be paid for by low-income minority students. It doesn't have to happen. It can be paid for by big oil through their taxes. What a concept. They can pay through their taxes instead of buying off your departments one at a time. Didn't BP do that? Didn't that have something to do with the current energy secretary? There are alternatives. That's what this is about. And these moments of crisis, as Nelson was alluding to, can be progressive moments. Because let's remember that this economic crisis, this financial crisis, was a moment when the world saw the failures of capitalism, the failures of Wild West capitalism, and wanted solutions, and elected a president who was promising solutions. Whether he delivered on them or had ever had any intention of it is another matter. But that hunger is there. And the idea that this crisis created by Wall Street, and what's happening in California is not just about the tax cuts here, it's also about the collapse of the tax base. And that is because of the choice to bail out Wall Street rather than bail out workers and bail out homeowners. You are feeling the effects of that now. There are alternatives in how we respond to this. And something really similar happened in Italy under the charming Silvio Berlusconi a few months ago, when he bailed out the banks and then turned around and started corporatizing the universities. And the students in Italy, who have quite the fighting spirit, much like you do here in Berkeley, took to the streets, and they had their slogan was, "We will not pay for your crisis," which I think sounded better in Italian, but the slogan caught fire, and it was used by workers in France when they staged a general strike. "We will not pay for your crisis." And it was used by students and farmers in Greece when they blocked highways and refused to pay for the crisis and pushed back. All eyes are on California right now because you are on the front lines. Every state, almost every state in the country, is trying to balance their budgets on the backs of the poor and the vulnerable. They're just taking it further and faster, shock therapy style, here in California. But the thing about shock therapy, when they come at you all at once, in every sector of society, is that if it doesn't work, it can build our coalitions for us, because it's affecting everybody all at once. What's happening here is that you drew a line. You drew a line. You said here and no further. You pushed back. You said no pasaran. We need you to win. Please fight to win. It will be contagious. Thank you. Good luck.